The morning air in the shipyard was thick with smoke, steel, and urgency, a living testament to America's wartime resolve. Captain Robert Jenkins walked among the skeletal frames of ships, eyes scanning the chaotic ballet of cranes, sparks, and workers. 4 days, he muttered under his breath, recalling Samuel Whitaker's dismissive tone. Impossible, they had said. Yet around him, Eleanor Hayes barked orders to a team of welders, her hands moving as fast as her mind, weaving innovation into every girder. Tommy Morales, young and trembling with excitement, hammered plates with precision, each blow a heartbeat in the war effort. Linda Chen's voice rang above the din, rallying the women who had replaced men gone to battle. Doubt and determination collided in every corner of the yard, forming a crucible in which something extraordinary was about to be forged. The first day of the project felt like stepping into the impossible. Eleanor sketched new modular plans on the dusty boards, arguing with skeptical foremen over time and efficiency. Tommy adjusted plates with shaky hands, aware that one misstep could collapse hours of work. Linda inspired her team with stories of women in factories across the country, and even Whitaker, with his arms crossed, paused to watch progress. Each bolt tightened and weld sealed carried the weight of history, a reminder that failure wasn't an option, and that every moment in the yard was a chance to defy the impossible. By the afternoon, mistakes had started to show. Misaligned plates and tense welds threatened the timeline. Tommy's hands shook under pressure, and Eleanor's voice rose in urgent commands, but the workers responded with grit and ingenuity. Each small victory, each plate properly fitted, fueled their determination. Around them, the shipyard roared with life, a symphony of hammers, sparks, and diesel engines, a testament to human resilience under impossible constraints. Night fell, but the yard never slept. Lights glimmered against metal like stars, shadows of workers dancing across the hulls. Captain Jenkins walked the rows of ships, noticing every flaw and every triumph. Samuel Whitaker, once skeptical, now whispered encouragement to his foremen. The impossible began to seem possible, not because of miracles, but because of the relentless dedication of ordinary men and women refusing to accept defeat. By dawn, the first modular section was complete. It stood like a silent victory, each bolt a testament to human will. Eleanor clapped Tommy on the shoulder, Linda smiled through soot-streaked faces, and even Whitaker allowed a rare, small nod of approval. The war might rage across oceans, but here, in a steel-scented yard, humanity had carved a triumph from impossibility, the first spark of a legacy that would echo through 200 ships and countless lives saved. Eleanor Hayes paced between the towering steel frames, her mind racing faster than the sparks from welding torches. If we cut the hull into pre-assembled sections, we can build ships in days, not months, she insisted. Skeptical foremen shook their heads, muttering about impossible timelines. Tommy Morales glanced nervously at the blueprints, feeling the weight of inexperience pressing down. But Linda Chen's steady gaze reassured the younger workers, and Captain Jenkins' approving nod gave them the courage to try. Samuel Whitaker remained a shadow of doubt, arms folded, yet even he felt the pulse of innovation stirring across the yard. This was the moment ingenuity met desperation. The first modular assembly began amid a chorus of skepticism. Bolts didn't align perfectly, welding sparks flew in wild arcs, and Tommy's hands shook as he tried to match Eleanor's meticulous instructions. Yet every misstep became a lesson, every correction a step closer to speed and precision. Linda led a small group of women workers, ensuring safety and efficiency, their movements synchronized like a well-rehearsed dance. Captain Jenkins walked through the chaos, offering encouragement, while Whitaker silently calculated the risks and possibilities. By evening, a section stood ready, a fragile victory carved from doubt. Arguments erupted over methodology, but necessity forced compromise. Eleanor's radical vision collided with Whitaker's cautious insistence on traditional methods. Tommy and the crew caught in the middle, adapted as best they could, their hands moving faster than their minds could process. Linda Chen's leadership bridged the gap, showing that courage and collaboration could overcome fear. Each new section of the ship became a small rebellion against impossibility, proving that innovation thrived even under pressure and doubt. By the third day, tension had become fuel. Every bolt, weld, and beam carried the weight of expectation. Tommy's inexperience turned into ingenuity, as improvisation saved time on several tricky sections. Eleanor's innovative modular system began to hum with efficiency, and Linda's team worked like clockwork, the symphony of labor, echoing across the yard. Whitaker's skepticism softened into cautious admiration, and Captain Jenkins saw the impossible gradually taking shape. The dream of 4-day ship construction no longer seemed absurd. It was becoming a tangible reality. As night fell, the first full modular section was complete, a testament to daring, skill, and teamwork. Eleanor smiled at Tommy, who beamed despite fatigue, and Linda's eyes sparkled with pride as her team cleaned and inspected the work. Whitaker finally allowed himself a small nod of respect, acknowledging that innovation could triumph over tradition. Captain Jenkins stood tall, realizing that what began as a challenge had become a revolution in shipbuilding. The impossible was no longer theoretical. It had been forged in steel, sweat, and courage. The morning fog hung low over the shipyard as if holding its breath for what was about to happen. Eleanor Hayes circled the hull, her hands smudged with soot, heart racing with anticipation. Tommy Morales wiped sweat from his brow, fear and pride colliding in his chest. Linda Chen moved among the workers, whispering encouragement, while Captain Jenkins surveyed the yard with measured calm. Samuel Whitaker lingered near the cranes, the skepticism in his eyes replaced with guarded hope. Today, the impossible would face its first real test. Could they actually launch a ship in 4 days? Every bolt, every weld, every effort carried the weight of history. The final bolts were tightened, and Eleanor stepped back, heart hammering in her chest. Tommy's hands shook, but the ship stood complete, a monument to human determination. Linda's team erupted in quiet cheers, careful not to disrupt the careful inspection underway. Captain Jenkins allowed himself a faint smile, sensing the magnitude of the moment. Even Whitaker, who had doubted the entire endeavor, gave a reluctant nod, acknowledging that their daring, sweat, and courage had produced something truly extraordinary. The shipyard erupted into controlled chaos as word spread. The first ship was ready. Eleanor clapped Tommy on the shoulder, and Linda gathered her team for a moment of quiet celebration. Captain Jenkins surveyed the scene, eyes scanning the hundreds of workers who had poured every ounce of themselves into the impossible. Whitaker moved slowly toward them, his expression softening with respect and awe. For the first time, the impossible didn't feel like a challenge. It felt like a promise. A crowd gathered near the launch area as the first ship was slowly moved into position. Tommy's pulse raced with anticipation. Eleanor's jaw clenched in determination, and Linda's eyes sparkled with unspoken pride. Captain Jenkins gave the signal, and the massive steel vessel began to glide toward the water, its weight a testament to human ingenuity. Whitaker's skepticism melted entirely as the ship floated with a surprising grace, defying every doubt, every whispered warning, and every limit previously imagined. The launch was perfect. Water lapped against the hull as the massive ship floated effortlessly, gleaming in the sunlight. Eleanor hugged Tommy, tears mingling with soot on their faces. Linda's team cheered loudly, their voices echoing across the yard. Captain Jenkins allowed himself a deep, satisfied breath, knowing they had achieved something legendary. Whitaker stepped forward, his hand extended to Eleanor in respect, acknowledging that the audacity of youth, combined with skill and courage, had reshaped what the world thought possible. The first victory had been won, and the path toward 200 ships and a revolution in shipbuilding was clear. The yard had transformed into a pulsing hive of steel and ambition. Eleanor Hayes barked orders over the clamor of welding sparks and clanking plates, pushing workers to match her modular plans with precision. Tommy Morales, now more confident, guided younger recruits, his initial fear replaced by determination. Linda Chen orchestrated teams of women welders like a conductor, every movement synchronized with purpose. Captain Jenkins moved between sections, ensuring the work maintained both speed and quality. Even Samuel Whitaker, the once skeptical manager, now inspected the yard with a sense of cautious pride. Every day brought them closer to the monumental goal of 200 ships, but every day also stretched their limits, testing skill, stamina, and resolve. Supply shortages, tight deadlines, and fatigue threatened the pace of construction. Tommy wiped sweat from his brow as he struggled to assemble a tricky hull section, while Eleanor recalculated timelines on the fly, adjusting for every delay. Linda's team improvised tools and techniques to speed welding, their ingenuity a lifeline. Captain Jenkins encouraged his crews tirelessly, his voice cutting through the roar of engines and machinery. Even Whitaker's quiet acknowledgement of their progress reminded everyone that extraordinary feats were only possible when teamwork met relentless determination. Accidents and minor collapses tested their resolve. A partially assembled hull buckled under its own weight, forcing Tommy and two others to scramble and reinforce it before disaster struck. Eleanor's heart pounded as she directed reinforcements, while Linda's voice cut through panic, rallying the team. Captain Jenkins coordinated cranes to stabilize the structure, and Whitaker, witnessing the quick problem-solving, finally admitted that fear had no place in this yard, only courage and skill. Every challenge became a testament to their growing efficiency and resilience. As weeks passed, the shipyard rhythm transformed into near perfection. Tommy had become a mentor, passing skills to newcomers with patience and pride. Eleanor's innovations spread to multiple teams, modular construction now humming like a well-oiled machine. Linda's crews welded tirelessly, each section a precise puzzle piece, while Captain Jenkins ensured quality never faltered. Whitaker, once the doubter, now toured daily, nodding to each successful launch of a modular section. The impossible goal of 200 ships began to feel achievable, yet every victory carried a shadow. The physical and emotional toll on every worker mounted with every passing day. The first batch of completed ships rolled toward the docks, a parade of human ingenuity and tireless effort. Eleanor, Tommy, and Linda watched from the yard, their faces streaked with grime, exhaustion mingled with triumph. Captain Jenkins allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, knowing every ship represented not just steel and welds, but courage, skill, and relentless determination. Whitaker, once the voice of doubt, now marveled at the accomplishment, a quiet acknowledgement that innovation, teamwork, and unwavering human spirit had rewritten what the world believed possible. The war loomed beyond the horizon, every radio broadcast and newspaper headline reminding the shipyard that lives depended on their work. Supply shipments were delayed, and deadlines became razor-sharp lines carved into each worker's day. Tommy Morales, fatigued but determined, adjusted hull plates under Eleanor Hayes' careful supervision. Linda Chen's welding teams worked through aches and blisters, each spark a heartbeat in the machinery of survival. Captain Jenkins paced the yard, tension etched in his features, while Samuel Whitaker's once steely skepticism now turned into relentless pressure for results. Every ship carried the weight of a nation, and every mistake could ripple across oceans. Delays in supply and unexpected weather storms threatened the schedule. Eleanor recalculated assembly timelines, Tommy improvised to keep plates aligned, and Linda's team adapted welding techniques to withstand high winds and rain. Captain Jenkins coordinated logistics like a general on the front lines, while Whitaker reported shortages with grim determination. Every decision carried immediate consequences, every adjustment a test of resilience. The clock ticked mercilessly, reminding everyone that the war did not pause for perfection. Only results mattered. Personal sacrifices weighed heavily. Workers slept in cramped quarters, skipping meals to maintain pace. Tommy wrote letters home he could barely finish, his hands blackened by steel. Eleanor, obsessed with precision, barely noticed the passing days. Linda's team supported one another, sharing brief smiles and quiet encouragement amid exhaustion. Captain Jenkins reminded them that each ship completed could save thousands of lives overseas, and Whitaker, though silent, felt a growing respect for the relentless human spirit that refused to yield under pressure. Enemy attacks on supply convoys and urgent requests from the front amplified tension. Eleanor and Tommy coordinated rapid adjustments to assembly lines, improvising when critical components were late. Linda's welders doubled shifts, every spark a tiny battle against time. Captain Jenkins' voice boomed across the yard, steady and commanding, reminding everyone that every completed ship was a lifeline for soldiers abroad. Whitaker, now a silent partner in their struggle, monitored efficiency with exacting scrutiny, recognizing that war had transformed them all into frontline warriors in a steel-studded battlefield. By nightfall, the yard was a living organism of steel, sweat, and determination. Sparks danced like fleeting stars, casting shadows on exhausted faces. Tommy, Eleanor, and Linda paused briefly, hands trembling, hearts pounding. Captain Jenkins surveyed the yard, pride tempered by fatigue, while Whitaker, silent and thoughtful, finally acknowledged that what they had accomplished transcended doubt and expectation. The war raged, lives hung in the balance, and yet, in this yard, humanity's courage, ingenuity, and tireless spirit had carved a sanctuary of hope from chaos and pressure. The shipyard felt like a living machine at the edge of collapse. The clang of steel was constant, the air thick with smoke and exhaustion. Tommy Morales worked without rest, eyes burning, hands blistered. Eleanor Hayes calculated schedules in her notebook, her pencil trembling from fatigue. Linda Chen's welding team worked double shifts, their sparks painting the night sky in orange light. Captain Jenkins pushed everyone forward, his voice hoarse but unyielding, while Samuel Whitaker tracked numbers with silent obsession. They were days away from reaching the 200th ship, but one mistake now could unravel everything. The line between glory and failure had never been thinner. As dawn broke, disaster struck. A critical crane jammed, threatening to stall construction. Tommy and a crew scrambled up its frame, tools clanging against steel as they fought to free it. Eleanor shouted instructions from below, her voice steady despite the chaos. Linda coordinated her team to reinforce unstable sections, while Captain Jenkins ordered emergency protocols. Whitaker's eyes followed every move, realizing that leadership was not about command but courage. After hours of sweat and strain, the crane groaned back to life, greeted by a cheer that echoed across the entire shipyard. The crisis had unified the yard even more. Workers moved in perfect rhythm, driven by something greater than orders, a collective will to finish what they had started. Tommy guided new recruits like a seasoned veteran. Eleanor's modular design system ran flawlessly now, her ideas proven beyond question. Linda's welders worked with near-mechanical precision, faces illuminated by firelight. Captain Jenkins watched them, proud but weary, while Whitaker finally allowed himself a rare smile. The rhythm of hammers and torches became the heartbeat of victory itself. By evening, the 199th ship stood ready, its hull gleaming under floodlights. The workers stood silently, knowing the next would be the one that made history. Eleanor's voice broke the hush. "One more." Tommy smiled despite exhaustion, whispering, "We're not stopping now." Linda adjusted her gloves, eyes blazing with focus. Captain Jenkins nodded, his expression unreadable but proud, while Whitaker whispered a prayer he never admitted believing in. The entire yard inhaled together, ready for one last impossible push. The final night arrived in a blur of sparks, sweat, and thunderous determination. Every worker, every welder, every engineer poured their last ounce of strength into the 200th ship. Tommy's hands bled through his gloves, but he kept working. Eleanor's voice carried commands that cut through the din, sharp and unwavering. Linda's torch never faltered, her team's sparks cascading like fireworks of defiance. Captain Jenkins stood atop the scaffolding, watching the final weld seal shut. Whitaker closed his ledger, eyes glistening. When the last spark faded and silence fell, the 200th Liberty ship stood complete, a monument to the human spirit, built from the impossible. Morning broke over the shipyard in a haze of golden light and drifting smoke. The 200th Liberty ship stood proudly in the water, its hull gleaming like a promise. Workers gathered silently, eyes wide, faces marked by soot and sleepless nights. Eleanor Hayes stood beside Captain Jenkins, her exhaustion hidden beneath quiet pride. Tommy Morales leaned against a steel beam, too tired to speak, while Linda Chen clasped her hands together, smiling faintly. Samuel Whitaker stared at the ships stretching down the harbor. 200 miracles born from human grit. No one spoke. The silence said everything. When the launch whistle sounded, cheers erupted across the yard. Workers shouted, cried, and embraced. Tommy lifted his helmet, waving it high. Eleanor covered her mouth as tears broke free. Linda's welders hugged one another, their faces streaked with grime and joy. Captain Jenkins raised the American flag on the ship's bow, the stars and stripes fluttering in the breeze. Whitaker stepped forward and said quietly, "They called it impossible." The ship slid gracefully into the water, and for a single breathtaking moment, time stood still. That night, the shipyard was quiet. Machinery rested, torches cooled, and the stars hung over steel hulls like silent witnesses. Eleanor walked alone among the ships, running her hand along cold metal, whispering to herself about what they'd built. Tommy sat on a crate, staring at the horizon, imagining the ships carrying hope across oceans. Linda joined him, offering a tired smile. Captain Jenkins stood on the dock, his reflection merging with the ships, while Whitaker closed the final ledger. Every number now a story. Every ship a symbol of defiance and unity. Days later, newspapers called it a miracle. 200 ships in record time, but for those who built them, it wasn't about records. It was about survival, purpose, and pride. Eleanor spoke to a crowd of workers, her voice steady. "We didn't just build ships. We built hope." Tommy smiled quietly from the back, Linda standing beside him, while Captain Jenkins saluted the workers as heroes. Even Whitaker, once the voice of impossibility, applauded. The applause wasn't for themselves. It was for what they proved humanity could achieve together. Years later, the ships had long sailed. Some lost to war, others retired to rust, but their story remained. In history books and fading photographs, their legacy endured. The shipyard fell silent, its cranes motionless, but the echoes of hammer strikes and welding torches lived on. Eleanor's designs inspired generations of engineers. Tommy became a teacher, Linda a forewoman, Jenkins a symbol of leadership under fire, and Whitaker, who once said it was impossible, was remembered for witnessing the miracle come true. The Liberty ships weren't just vessels. They were proof that when people unite behind purpose, even steel learns to move faster than doubt.